So, by this point in time, I think most of us have heard of the gut brain axis. On social media, we're seeing it all over the place, but do people really understand what that even means? We hear so much about the gut and the importance of the gut. And if you've got leaky gut, it can cause all these problems, but it can cause mental health issues. Our gut and the integrity of our gut and the microbiome of our gut can influence our mood drastically. And I don't think a lot of us understand that. And as we women go through midlife and we hit the perimenopause and then we hit the menopause and we lose these vital hormones, these hormones and the loss of them can impact your gut microbiome. And so this can increase some of the mental issues that we see come up as we go through this time. Not only because these hormones can help make certain neurotransmitters in our brain, but also because of the impact on our gut and that gut influencing our mental health. Not only that, ladies, the health of your gut has so much to do with how you process not only your own hormones, but hormone replacement therapy. So during this time in our life, in midlife, it is of the utmost importance that we pay attention to our gut health, which is why I have asked my guest today to come and speak with us on this whole gut brain axis and the importance of gut health as we hit midlife. Tina Anderson is the CEO and co founder of a company called Just Thrive Health, where she's got this incredible line of probiotics and prebiotics and all the things that we're going to be getting into today, and how hers really are very unique and stand out amongst the sea of probiotics that are out there. So, Tina, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Karen. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, so I listened to a podcast you did with Mindy Pals and I loved it. And I was like, oh my gosh, gotta get this woman on my show
Oh,
because it's stuff like I had never seen a product that was geared towards the gut to help with mental health that could influence it. So, how in the world did you get here? What is your background and why are you so passionate about this now?
yeah, that is a great question, Karen. I had a very interesting path. I started out in law. I'm actually an attorney. And so I was in litigation for many years and having crazy hours and lots of stress, and started having children and decided that this was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, the litigation aspect. So I was fortunate enough to go into a family pharmaceutical business where I was able to be their general counsel and work in a more part-time capacity, be able to stay home more with my kids. And it was wonderful. It was great. And I thought my husband and I were in the industry together, and we thought, this is great. We're in the pharmaceutical industry, saving lives, helping people. And then after being in that industry for a little while, we started to really start to uncover the abuses in the pharmaceutical industry. We saw the
Mm.
overprescribing of medications. We saw the, focus on treating symptoms, never getting to the root cause of an issue or a chronic condition. And I always like to preface things that I know that there is a time and a place for pharmaceuticals, especially in acute type of situations. God forbid
Yeah.
someone's in an accident, or you have a horrible infection. There are certain, that's the beauty of pharmaceuticals. But we just don't feel, my husband and I just don't feel like we didn't feel, and based on the research, that this is a place where you focus on chronic conditions. Like, pharmaceuticals should be used for acute type situations, not for chronic conditions. Rather, if you have a chronic condition, we need to get to the root cause. Why do I have asthma? Why do I have allergies? Why do I have high cholesterol? Why do I have heart disease? Whatever. Why do I have diabetes? And that was what we were really passionate about. And we do a lot of deep thinking. We read a lot of mindset books. We're huge fans of Dr. Wayne Dyer and
Me too.
everything.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
I
Wayne
miss him
Dyer
so
so
much.
much.
I know.
Yes.
I know. He's the best. He was
One of
the
my
best.
favorites. Yeah.
I know. And like all the messages I kept getting from him were like, you need to do your life's work. And we just didn't feel like we were. And so my husband and I kind of started diving into all the research in the natural health space. And we lived our lives already pretty naturally with our kids and just started researching a lot about the gut microbiome. This was shortly after the Human Microbiome Project was launched by the National Institutes of Health, learned more about the gut than we ever knew before. And through I'm telling you, being at the right place at the right time and a lot of prayer and meditation, we were actually able to license these very unique strains out of London University from top researcher Dr. Simon Cutting, these spore-based probiotics. And from there, that's where Just Thrive was born. And it's been the best career journey I've ever been on. It's also been just an amazing personal journey just because of what it's done for my own health, my family's health, my parents, my in-laws, my obviously
Wow.
my kids and relatives. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and it's funny because probiotics they've been around so long and it's kind of like, oh, it's old news, like
Yeah.
probiotics. But yours is different. And I didn't know that it was that you were like that you found that strain or that you were lucky enough to be able to take that and produce it in a supplement. So, first of all, explain soil-based probiotic because I heard you say, sorry, spore-based
Yep.
probiotic versus normal probiotic. I just want to get that clear for everybody first, and then we're going to get into gut health.
Sure. So, a probiotic, just the definition of a probiotic is a live microorganism when conferred in adequate amounts, confers a benefit onto the host, which is the body. So, the first part of that definition is that it needs to be a live microorganism. The difference with spores, and those are the type of strains we work with, bacillus spores, they have the ability to survive the gastric system and get to the intestines alive. So they meet that first part of the definition. The overwhelming majority of probiotics on the market that are comprised of lactobacillus and bifidobacterium are
Mhm.
very sensitive organisms and they have difficulty getting through that gastric system. And so, therefore, they're pretty much dead bacteria that arrive into the intestines. Now, it's not to say that those dead bacteria may not provide some type of benefit, but they're not making a true change in the gut. And for that matter, they're not a probiotic just based on the definition of what a probiotic is. So, spores have these are not a mushroom spore. They are a spore based bacteria that have this endospore shell around itself. And that shell allows it to survive the gastric system. And when it goes into the intestines, it takes its shell off and it goes into its live vegetative cell state. And why this is so interesting is because we haven't done anything to we haven't enteric-coated them to allow them to survive the gastric system. We haven't done anything special in their, manufacturing to make them stay in their spore form. Or that is kind of what we did. We did make them. The scientists behind the product actually allowed them to stay in their spore form, but these strains actually are in their spore form are dormant. They have this shell around themselves. And when they get to the intestines, they recognize the intestines as their home and they take their shell off. And so this is why they're so hardy, they're so robust, and why we start to see such profound changes in the gut when people start taking the spores. So it's a whole new category of probiotics. The other
Mhm.
probiotics on the market I would look at them as metabolic response modifiers. They may provide some type of change in the gut, but they're not making a true change in the gut flora like the spores do.
And interesting that I've been in this industry now for over a decade, and I have gone through the gamut of all probiotics, all different types. I will say probiotics are by far the best. Like that's where I see a change. Regular probiotics, nobody ever came back to say that they noticed anything. But with
Yep. Yep.
Spore, I would be people would come back and be like, okay, that helped my gut or, helped with whatever it was that they were dealing with. So I just didn't know. I personally didn't even know what the difference was. I just knew that Spore was better.
Yeah, well, a great analogy I'd love to use just to make it super simple is if you envision a garden and there's a garden and that garden has been stepped on and trampled on and there's weeds taking over the garden. So you kind of compare that to your intestines. You've got good bacteria and bad bacteria, but that bad bacteria is overtaking the good bacteria and your good bacteria is like hardly even thriving in your gut. So if you go back to that garden analogy, so what the conventional probiotics that you find out there, they'll throw like the seeds in the garden and then they just kind of they don't do anything with the weeds. They don't do anything with those plants that have been stepped on, trampled on. What they're kind of doing is maybe planting a new plant here and there, but they're not getting to the root cause of the problem. Where the difference is with spores, they go into that garden, they get there 100% alive. They attach to the soil in the garden. So in our gut, they attach to our intestinal cell wall. Then they have the ability to get rid of the overgrowth of the weeds. And then they have the ability to take our own plants or our own bacteria, our beneficial bacteria, and help bring it back to life. So this is how we create microbial diversity, which is the key to health, is having microbial diversity in our gut. And so if you just think of your gut as a garden, and we want to make sure we're taking care of our own good plants, our bacteria that's good for us already that we have there, but maybe it's just not flourishing in our gut. That's what these spores do, is they have the ability to get rid of the pathogenic bacteria, that the overgrowth of it, and help bring out our beneficial bacteria and make a true change in the gut. One of the first studies that we did on our strains was a gastric survivability study. It showed us that 99 or the probiotics on the market, there was like one of the top selling probiotics, 99.99% of those strains died by the time they got to the intestines.
Wow.
And that's crazy. It's like that we're seeing all these probiotics out there that are dying. So we know that these strains actually cause a 30% favorable shift in the gut. And this study was done only after like 2.5 weeks, and it was show this huge change in the gut. So
Wow.
it's a very unique strain. We were disruptors when we came to the market 11 years ago. It's been amazing. Obviously, there's lots of copycat spores out there and all that, which don't have the research behind it. But it's been amazing. It's been really an amazing journey.
I remember seeing a naturopathic doctor, oh my God, years and years ago. And I remember him and I talking about leaky gut. And he was like, you know what? Everybody's got a leaky gut. There isn't anybody that doesn't have one. And I was like, oh, you're kidding. Like at that time, I didn't know. And you think that if you're not having outward symptom, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, that, oh, my gut's fine.
Yep.
When there's so many other symptoms besides those that could mean that you actually are experiencing issues from your leaky gut. Now, would you agree with that? That everybody's got a leaky gut because of our environment and our food toxins and everything that's out there?
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if I'd say everybody, but I would say, they estimate 80% of the adult population has a leaky gut and they don't even know
Okay.
it. And we actually did the first human double-blind human clinical trial on metabolic endotoxemia, which is leaky gut. So University of North Texas took 100 college students. These were healthy young college students, no symptoms, nothing like that, feeling great, no medications. And 55% of those 100 college students had a leaky gut and didn't know it. So they basically had these LPS, the way they measured it is they took LPS toxins, which LPS stands for lipopolysaccharides. These LPS toxins seeped into the bloodstream. And when that happens, it causes this massive inflammatory response. We don't want LPS in our gut isn't necessarily that problematic. It's when it seeps into the bloodstream that we start seeing this inflammatory response. And that chronic low grade inflammation that happens when you have leaky gut is the driver of 90% of chronic diseases out there.
Wow.
And the study that we did actually showed that 55% of those college students, they divided that 55%. Half of them got a placebo and half of them got the spores, the strains that are actually used in Just Thrive. And what they sent those college students home for 30 days, no dietary or lifestyle modifications. We know what college students are doing to their gut. And they tested them and they found that the treated group, so the group that got the bacillus spores, actually saw a 42% reduction in LPS toxins. But here's the scary part. The scary part is the non-treated group. So the placebo group actually saw a 32% increase in LPS toxins. So it's exactly kind of what you were just talking about is that I always say it's like a drippy faucet. It's like you have this drippy faucet that's really not causing a problem, nothing overflows. And then one day it overflows. And that happens when you have a leaky gut, which again, by most estimations, the majority of the population does have a leaky gut, and so have this leaky gut start. People will say all of a sudden I have an allergy. I never had an allergy before. Well, really, you were contributing, or not you were contributing, but the LPS toxins were contributing to that allergy years before it onset with symptoms. And so this is the same with all diseases. I mean, that chronic low grade inflammation is so detrimental to our overall health.
Yeah, so basically, leaky gut is influencing all major disease.
It is 90, I would say 90% of non-communicable diseases are attributable to the leakiness of the gut because of that. When our immune system sees that those LPS toxins seep into the bloodstream, it starts this inflammatory process, which that inflammation could go to the brain, it could go to our heart, it could, the pancreas, it could go to any of our organ systems, our skin, all of these. And this is why what's so crazy is that, rheumatoid arthritis and let's say acne have the same cause, or irritable bowel syndrome and asthma have the same cause, and it's that leakiness of the gut, that metabolic endotoxemia. And that was the study that was done at University of North Texas on our strains, was this metabolic endotoxemia, and they actually saw this reduction of it once you started to introduce these bacillus spores.
And so, how exactly is the gut influencing our brain? How does that connection happen? Is it that we are producing these neurotransmitters in our gut, or is it more about the inflammation that's happening in the brain because of the leaky gut, or both?
It's a little bit of
A little of
both of those
everything.
things. There are a lot of
Okay.
both of those
Okay.
things,
Let's go through them.
Yeah. So one of the big things that I think surprise people so much is that our neurotransmitters are produced in our gut. So serotonin, which is our happy hormone, is produced in our gut. Dopamine is produced in our gut. GABA, which is our calming hormone, is produced in our gut. So all these critical neurotransmitters are actually being produced in our gut. So people would always ask me, like, what are some things you could do to improve your gut health? And I'm like, well, meditate. You need to calm yourself down, make some major lifestyle changes, because your brain is sending signals down to your gut. And then the reverse is true. Your gut is sending signals back up to your brain. And that's being done through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is, I like to call it the largest communication superhighway in your body, where the brain is sending signals to the gut and the gut is sending signals back to the brain. And I think now scientists are starting to understand this now, that we were focusing so much on serotonin in our brain, but really most of our serotonin is being produced in our gut. So it's where we need to start with like mental health issues and mood issues as well. But then you bring up another important point, and that's inflammation. So that inflammatory response that happens when LPS toxins seep in the bloodstream, that inflammation oftentimes does go to the brain. And so it's really important to try to cut off those LPS toxins from going into your bloodstream and causing that chronic inflammatory response by your immune system. So it's both of those things, and they work. The gut and the brain are working back and forth to each other. And we really want to increase that communication between the gut and the brain. And, sometimes it's so surprising for people to like think that there's this communication going on in the gut and the brain, but yet think about like when we're excited about something, what happens? We get butterflies in our stomach, or let's say we're nervous or we're scared about something. We maybe have to go to the bathroom more regularly. So, this is all connected through that vagus nerve.
When it comes to the neurotransmitters that are being made in the gut, and if we've got a leaky gut, is it a lack of certain strains that will make it so that we can't produce these neurotransmitters? Or is it more of there's inflammation in the gut, and that inflammation is influencing the production of the neurotransmitters? Or is, once again, mixture of both?
Yeah, it's a mixture of both. When you think about that garden that we talked about. I mean, the garden
Mhm.
just can't flourish. And then those neurotransmitters can't be produced. If you have this unhealthy and low diversity of a microbiome, you're not going to be able to produce those neurotransmitters as readily as you would if you had this healthy, lush garden or microbiome to help produce those neurotransmitters. So it really is a combination of both because, and then we don't want, most people's guts are inflamed, and
Mhm.
having a low diverse microbiome, it really does contribute to that, lack of diversity in the gut. So, but really we just have to recognize that so much of our gut health is responsible for the production of those neurotransmitters, as well as the
Yeah.
metabolism of our hormones. I mean, the
Yeah.
estrobolome is a subset of microbes that is in our part of our gut flora, and its job is to metabolize our hormones. And so it's super important that we're taking care of our gut. Our immune system is, primary 70 to 80% of it is found in our gut lining. So if we have a compromised gut, we're having trouble fighting off infections, we're having trouble dealing with colds and flus and viruses and things like that. We're having, and any other pathogens out there. So it's really, I mean, we are now, we're scratching the surface on the importance of
Yeah.
gut health. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like I said, hard to find any non-communicable disease that's not associated with some type of imbalance in our gut health.
Yeah, and then as we lose important hormones like estradiol is important for the production of serotonin, even a little bit of the dopamine, and then progesterone helps and acts on the production of GABA.
Yep.
I wonder if that is taking place in the gut, that pathway. I don't know. Do you know?
Yep. Yeah. No, I believe it is taking place in there. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I always imagined it in the brain.
Yeah.
Like it was
And
like being made, like estrogen would reach the brain receptors, and then from there it would reach the serotonin receptors and influence it. But it's happening all in the gut.
yeah, especially since 90% of the serotonin is being produced in the gut.
Yeah. Even melatonin is as well. Did you know that?
Yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and it's so exciting, I think, because so many people think that I have this, I have arthritis or I have allergies or I have this. But when you see how much the microbiome influences disease out there, we know we can fix the microbiome. We can heal our microbiome. And there's lots of different things to do to heal it. But to know that once you heal the microbiome, so many of these other things start to disappear. And again, it's a whole. There's a lot of tools in the toolbox to be focusing
Mhm.
on your
Yes.
microbiome, but it is exciting to know that now people would always say, oh, once you have this disease, you can't ever get rid of it. And it's like now we're finding out that no, the microbiome is really, really critical in helping us heal from different diseases.
Yeah, especially autoimmune conditions, like they're just
Yes,
rampant right now. Like they're on the rise, and they say you got an autoimmune, you're 150% guaranteed you've got problems with your gut,
that's right.
no matter
That's
what
right.
the autoimmune condition is. And
Yep.
so that's just yeah, it's just more fuel to the fire across everything is the gut health. When it comes to fermented foods, because those got really popular for a while, I don't hear about them as much anymore. Like there was a point in time where everybody was fermenting. Even myself, I was making kombucha and I was fermenting my own
Mhm.
sauerkraut and it rotted. And so that failed. But,
Mhm.
it was really popular and it was like, oh, all you got to do is eat fermented foods and you're gonna that's gonna give you all the probiotics that your body needs. But I don't know if that's the case. So can you talk about that? Like how much can we actually be getting from fermented foods?
Yeah, so I am a huge fan of fermented foods. I eat them quite often. I eat a lot of sauerkraut, and I think they're really beneficial for our gut. They are just not a replacement of a probiotic. And here's
Okay.
why, because in the probiotic or in a fermented food, let's say sauerkraut, there's lactobacillus in there, and it's a live microorganism when it's in the sauerkraut when you're eating it. But when it hits the gastric system, when it hits the stomach, which is the gastric barrier, it too will get killed off by the gastric system. Our gastric system is meant to be the gastric barrier. Our stomach acid is so strong that it would, if your finger touched it, it would burn. So, and it's meant to do that. It's getting rid of like pathogenic bacteria and things like that, but it will kill. That's why most probiotics die, because of that gastric system. But so fermented foods, those bacteria are live microorganisms and they will die. Now, that doesn't mean that like there's not other benefits. The ferment has benefits, the very nutrient dense foods, they are just not a replacement for a probiotic.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. That's what came to the conclusion of on my own. I was like, "I don't think this is
Yeah.
quite good enough."
Well,
Um
yeah, sometimes these things don't make sense when you think about it. Like when a lot of probiotics, you find in the refrigerated section of the grocery store. And
Yes.
when I thought it like net doesn't make any sense, because it has to be a live microorganism, not in the refrigerator. It has to be a live microorganism in your intestines. And,
Right.
most of those, if it can't withstand the room temperature of the store shelf, how in the world would it ever survive your body temperature, which is 98.6, which they don't, let alone the very acidic environment of the stomach.
Yeah.
And they're just not. And that's why, people aren't seeing as much of a benefit from them.
Yeah, and the fact that the spore-based probiotics have an antimicrobial effect, and I find regular probiotics do not. And
Mhm.
so people that, for instance, with small intestinal bacteria over or SIBO, they always are like, no, big hard no on probiotics because it'll just feed the good bacteria in the wrong spot, basically.
Yep.
But when you use a spore-based biotic, which I have before with somebody with SIBO, several people, it works because it's also killing the bad bacteria at the same time, and it's got the
Exactly.
antimicrobial effect.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's
Oh,
exactly
good.
like most probiotics, like you said, they'll contribute to that bacterial overgrowth in the small bowel, where the spores are not, because they have the ability to read the microbial environment. They do something called quorum sensing. And that is their ability to kind of read, like, oh, is there a bad guy here? Like we talked about the garden, or is there a good guy? And they have the ability to do that. And that's why, or people with like, the histamine intolerance, that's another great
Yes.
example. They don't do well. A lot of people with histamine intolerance don't do well with probiotics, and that's because they contribute to that histamine. And these spores do not do that because they have the ability to read the microbial environment. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have said, I've tried every probiotic out there. There's nothing like this. And I know there really hasn't been anything like this. So it's so much fun to change lives every day, like you're doing every
Yes,
day.
yeah.
It's just so much fun when you do your life's work. Thank you, Dr. Wayne
Yeah,
Dyer, for bringing us along this path, because it's really fun to change people's lives.
it really is. I couldn't agree more. So, what are the strains then that you've discovered, and how are they impacting mental health? Like, how do they relate to that?
Well, the spore-based strains that we launched with our flagship product is our probiotic product, and that is called our Just Thrive probiotic and antioxidant. And we have 4 bacillus strains in there: Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus indicus, Bacillus clausii, and Bacillus coagulans. So the Bacillus subtilis and the Bacillus indicus are really the heavy hitters, particularly the Bacillus indicus. That strain actually produces antioxidants. So the researchers at University of North Texas actually thought that that strain, particularly it's called Bacillus indicus HU36, that strain actually helped with oxidative stress. And we know that oxidative stress is a big problem when you're talking about the gut lining. And so they feel like that particular strain was really, really important for the leakiness, to help seal up the tight junctions, to get rid of that leakiness in the gut. But the way that the probiotic actually helps contribute is that production, making your gut healthy, a diverse gut, and being able to produce those neurotransmitters in our gut and to adequate levels. Now, the other thing is it's helping send communication to the brain. We also launched about, I think, gosh, a year and a half ago, something called a psychobiotic. And we were, again,
Yeah.
disruptors, first to the market with this type of strain.
Yes.
A
That's what grabbed
psychobiotic,
my attention. That one, I was like,
yes.
"What is this?" Like, it's
Yes,
yeah.
you were not alone. It grabbed a lot of people's attention because unfortunately we're living in this world that's so stressed out and our cortisol levels are off the charts. And so this psychobiotic strain is under our label. It's a sub brand of Just Thrive called Joot, Joot, and that product is called Just Calm. So we have our probiotic and then
Was
we
gonna
have
say,
our
I hope
Just
I got some
Calm.
of that one. I did. I got Just Calm.
Yes. Yes. Good, good. It's oh
Yeah,
my God. It's so crazy because everybody wants to get on that. And I'm always like, first start with the probiotic because the probiotic is like
I got that one too.
foundational for your health. Okay, good, good.
Yeah.
So the Just Calm is a psychobiotic strain, and this strain is called a Bifidolongum 1714. This strain was research. It is so researched, and we have like 8 clinical trials on this particular strain showing how it reduces the perception of stress. It allows us to balance our cortisol levels healthier
What?
and at healthier levels.
Wow.
It puts us more in that theta wave state, so that flow state. So we're not, in this fight or flight state all the time, and I think it's important to talk about that fight or flight state because the fight or flight state is a protective mechanism for humans. We were given this, God-given ability to have this fight or flight state to help us run from a saber-toothed tiger and help us, get away from some dangerous predator. But nowadays, we don't have those threats, but we are constantly in this fight or flight state just based on the world we're living in. We get a
Yeah.
text message that like kind of rubs us the wrong way. We get into a fight with a loved one where we have a list that's so long and we can't get it things done. Kids are screaming, whatever it might
I was
be.
gonna say,
Somebody,
we just have kids? How about
yeah,
that?
right. That's just enough. Exactly.
Because we have no more community, there's no more village to help you raise your child. Women are
Ex-
working full time, raising children full time. It's
yes.
like, and we've normalized it, Tina. It's
I,
so normal that
I
everybody
know.
thinks they're not stressed.
I know, I know. And they also think that being stressed is kind of like a badge of honor, or whoever's
Oh,
busier.
totally.
It's like, and
Yes.
I'm telling you, whoever's listening, please don't look at it like a badge of honor should be like, oh, I laid down today and read a
Yeah,
book, or I
exactly.
went on a stroll through nature. I mean, that should be a badge of honor. I played tennis with a good friend. It's like these are the things we should be honoring, not oh, I had inbox filled with all of these emails. And I mean, my God, I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We're all guilty of
Yeah,
it. But
yeah.
I try to be very prescriptive about changing that because we aren't getting out of that fight or flight state. And that is really bad for us. I mean, it's really bad for us to get out of that fight or flight state. So this psychobiotic strain is really helping people with those external stressors. The probiotic is helping us with sealing up the tight junctions for the gut lining so that inflammatory response won't go up to the brain. That's really important. There's two offenders to our brain health: the inflammation that we just talked about, and
Mhm.
also the external stressors that we're dealing with on a daily basis. We're not going to get rid of those external stressors, but we do want to get to a point where we can just handle them better. And I think we all know people that are those people that could handle things better. And those people likely have a lot of Bifidolongum 1714 in their guts. I mean, that's what the studies
Mm.
have shown us, that people with high levels of Bifidobacterium longum
Oh,
1714 are those people that are just calmer and able to handle stress better. And so we introduced this product, brought it to market. It has been a game changer for people with, mood issues, just that ability to handle stress better. And as you could imagine, it sold out within the first month of our launch because I mean, we thought it would go over well, but we never thought it would go over this well. But it's just people are just it's craving something that really is getting to the root cause and helping us, with any of those mood issues that we're dealing with.
I think I'm deficient. Hearing you talk about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think maybe I'm really deficient in this strain. I don't handle stress very well. And I just think of all the women, going back to what we were just talking about, so many women value their worth on how much they do in a day.
Yeah.
And it's just go, go, go. And it's like, oh, I've got a bazillion children. I run my own company. I do this, I do that, and it's like, yeah, that's great. And of course, like, I want all women to rise up and do everything they want to do in their life. But what is that doing to our health? And
Right.
as we, once again, going through midlife, we become so sensitive to our stress. And everybody can relate with this that is in this journey in their 40s and 50s, where it's like, gosh, looking back when I was 25, I could work a 10-hour shift, party till 3 o'clock in the morning, get up on 3 hours sleep, and do it all over again, being
Yep.
super happy and not feeling like tired or
Yeah,
anything. And
I
then
know.
now it's like, oh my gosh, is it past 9 o'clock? I gotta get to
I
bed.
I know, I know. It's
Or
amazing.
a little blip happens and you're like, I can't handle this.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true, and it's so thank God I said, like, for podcasts like yours that you could us women could, like, relate to each other and know we're not alone in that because it is so true. Everything you're saying is spot on.
Yeah, and who I had no idea there was a strain of bacteria that could help with stress management. Like, I've
Mhm.
never heard this before. This is why it's just so fascinating to me. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I can't
it
wait to get this stuff into my system. Because I set out this year, Tina, my number one goal was to reduce stress. And all of the regular advice that I obviously give to my own clients and people around me, I'm not good at following. Like, I've tried the meditation, I've tried just, doing things for myself and but I'm a total addict when it comes to business and staying busy, and I'm my own worst enemy, 100%. So then I was like, okay, well this year I'm going to look outside myself and utilize what's out there, because there's so much technology and advancements in health and supplements and everything
Yeah,
that I'm like, I'm going to see what these things can do to help reduce my stress. And
yeah.
so this is going in the toolbox.
Yeah, okay, I love it. No, I know, and, we didn't evolve with this much stress, and we always like to go
No.
back to, like, the way we evolved. We didn't evolve with this much stress in our lives. I mean, they were different stressors, but we're just constantly every day dealing with stressors, and it is obviously we're seeing it's not good for our health. I mean, our
Mm.
society's health as a whole. So, and then, going through menopause and all that, I mean, that creates a whole other issue of gut issues. We know that it's so menopause is so disruptive to our gut health, so it's so important to take care of our gut health during that phase. But it's also, if you're on like an HRT, if you're on estrogen and progesterone or any other type of replacement therapy, we have to be able to metabolize and excrete the estrogen properly, and that's being done in the gut. So we really need to be focusing our gut during this time in our life, because this is when women are being faced with its chronic inflammation, is during even more so during menopause. So every hormone expert I talk with out there, everyone is like, you got to focus on your gut. I mean, I think as
Yeah.
women, when I could do like HRT and you could do something to take care of your gut health, the combination of those, it's like magic. It's magic what happens to us as women going through this stage.
Yeah, and what we see in practice is women that have a compromised gut, which clearly we all have some degree of that, but if it's bad enough, we'll say, but sometimes, like I said before, you may not have any actual gut problems, because I'll say to women, do you have any gut issues? They're like, "No,
Yeah.
never get bloated, don't get constipated, don't,
Yes.
no, I feel good in my gut, I can eat anything," kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's like,
Uh-huh.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Maybe not, because it'll show up in their symptoms after starting HRT, or if they're
Mm,
in their cycling years, there's things that you can kind of go, oh, wait a second, they're experiencing this XYZ. I think this is a gut problem. And
yeah,
so to hear them say, oh, I don't have gut problems, it's like, actually, I think you do, because you're getting histamine reactions. You started estrogen, and in 1 month, you've gained 5 pounds, and your breasts are swollen, and you don't feel good, and you're bloated. That is likely gut based, because you're not metabolizing your HRT properly. And then,
right.
like you said, Tina, it's being recirculated,
Yeah.
that
Yep,
estrogen.
exactly. Exactly. No, this is exactly it. And it's just, you see all these women that are dealing with chronic issues that start to happen in those years. And we have to recognize that they come from the gut. And you're right. People will always say, I don't have any gut issues. But then they're
Mhm.
like, well, I don't really go to the bathroom every day. I mean, well, yeah, if you're not going to the bathroom every day, you have gut issues. Or I just have some bloating. That's a gut issue. But even, you have allergy, you have anxiety, depression, you have any of those symptoms. Those are all gut related too. And it's deficiency in estrogen and your hormones and all of those things, but they also are deficient, things go problematic things going on in your gut.
Has there been much research done on, the prevalence or the influence, I should say, of the gut driving chronic depression or anxiety in
Oh
life?
yes.
Like, not
Oh yeah,
just, like, outside of midlife?
yes, there's been a lot of research coming out just showing that that connection is real between the and the brain, that gut brain axis, and how we know we the researchers, like I said, used to I feel like they always had their hands tied because all they could ever use were SSRIs and
Yes.
anti-anxiety meds. And now they're finding out that all of like these serotonin and all these neurotransmitters are being produced in the gut. So the research it's just, again, it's scratching the surface now, because it's the gut now. It's so funny because you could Google any chronic condition out there, like gut health and brain health, gut health and rheumatoid arthritis, gut health and diabetes, gut health and skin issues. I mean, there are so much research on all of these topics because we're finding out that the gut is responsible for all these different areas of health.
Yeah, I mean, that's do you okay, well, have you heard from people that have taken your product? Now, please don't take this as medical advice, listeners, but have you heard of people being able to come off antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication? Like this being the actual like root cause of that depression or anxiety that they've had possibly for a lifetime?
Yeah, you're right. I have to be careful in answering this
I know.
question
Yeah. Yes.
because
Very careful. And this is
this is
just
not, it's not a replacement for an SSRI or an anti-anxiety medicine.
no.
It's not, because it acts in completely different ways. I mean, it is not doing the same thing. So it's not a replacement. But we do know when you start to get to the root cause of things by focusing on your neurotransmitter production in your gut, you start to not have that need anymore for certain medications. But I mean, so many people that are on those medications really aren't having much success at all. I mean, I know
They
so many
aren't.
people that are on these SSRIs just with minimal success, and so they have nothing to lose by trying to clean up their gut.
Yeah, exactly. And if anything, it could at least help them to feel better, even if they don't come off of their medications, which some people really need that medication. It does work really well for some people. I just interviewed Angela Foster. Do you know her?
They don't. No.
Oh, I have to make the connection because
Yes, please do.
she's amazing. She's a biohacker out of England,
Okay.
um, who her story is just heartbreaking. She had severe postpartum depression,
Oh,
bipolar. She was diagnosed bipolar disease and took, I don't know, 7 years or something to recover from all of it. But she had to do all of these things. But for her, medication was necessary, and she was able to finally get off of it. But she'll be the first to say, like, some people, they need this. She's like, I needed this. There was no way I would have taken my own life had I not been on
wow.
these medications.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. There are certain medications that are great for acute situations. And, but I think we need to, I always look at, gut health is one part of it. And there's so many different tools to be taking care of our gut health. So, we have nutrition, which is so overlooked by so many, so much of our society, and all these overprocessed foods that are leading to complete dysbiosis of our gut. The medications that we're taking, the over the counter things that we're taking, the toxins, obviously pesticides, the antibiotics that we're taking are just so disruptive to our gut. So there are other changes that we could be making every day to gut that we'll start to see some pretty exciting results in addition to taking, probiotics and all that. But there's so much that we could do, and that will start affecting our impacting and improving our mood. I mean, I know myself, if I have a night out where, I've gone out to dinner and ate processed foods and had a glass of wine, it's like the next day I just don't feel great. And
Mhm.
it's just the way it is. And then you have nights where you just have wild caught really fresh green food from the farmer's market, veggies from the farmer's market. And it's like you just wake up the next day feeling great. And it's like that has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, yeah, no. If you were to give us kind of your top, like if we had to, because it's so hard for people to be like, okay, I'm gonna go do all of this
Yeah.
for my gut. If you had like a list of what's the most important that's gonna have the biggest impact, your top five, besides taking probiotics, what are your top five go-tos? Like, here's what I want you to start doing. Like, number one, this is the kind of diet that we see working best, or stress management, or not taking antibiotics. Like, what are the big
Yes.
heavy hitters that is going to impact our gut health more than anything?
Yeah, so I think not taking antibiotics is really at the top of that list, and avoiding foods that have been, injected with antibiotics. So really trying to
Mhm.
eat clean is really important. And I know it's hard, it's expensive, but
It is,
really
yeah.
trying to avoid antibiotics, whether it's that you take them. Of course, antibiotics save lives, but they are overprescribed. Even the CDC estimates that 50% of the population, if it, or 50% of antibiotics that are prescribed actually aren't necessary. So I would say to really avoid antibiotics, trying to eat clean foods like foods that have not been sprayed with pesticides. Glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, is so detrimental to our gut health. I mean, it's arguably worse than antibiotics. If anything could be worse than antibiotics.
Mhm.
So I would do that. I would also increase the diversity of your food. We're living in this world where it's like, I'm vegan, I'm paleo, I'm keto, I'm all these things, and everyone's so restrictive. I'm of the opinion that we need to eat a diverse group of, roots and tubers and vegetables and lots of different types of meat and seafood and whatever it is that are really, really healthy for you. But like eating a diverse group of them actually helps create a little bit of diversity in the diet as a society. Like our ancestors used to eat 600 different types of foods a year. And now I think we're about averaging 20 different types of food a year. An average person has about the 20 different types of food because we're just so stuck in our patterns. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too,
I'm
just kind
so
of doing
guilty.
what's, easy for me. But I've really tried to become prescriptive by getting out and trying I go into ethnic grocery stores buying different types of fruits because you're getting different types of soil on those foods. I would say meditation, we touched on that. We know there's a huge connection between the gut and the brain. And so I would definitely do that, just to like calm yourself down, making major lifestyle changes, spending time in nature. Nature is so therapeutic for
So
us just to
therapeutic. Yeah.
calm down. If you're near an ocean, if you're lucky enough to be near an ocean, get in the ocean and be exposed to different microbes. That's super helpful. And then, like you said, of course, taking a spore-based probiotic, which is, super easy and very effective because it's actually, it's just one capsule a day with food. It's just one of the easiest things you could be doing to support your gut health and where it really makes a change. But, again, like the spore-based probiotic is one tool in the toolbox. It's a powerful one, but it's
Yeah.
one tool in a toolbox. And I would always encourage people. People will say, can I just go eat whatever I want to and then take this? And, of course, my answer is always like, no, you can't do
No,
that.
you
It
can't.
still will help those people, but it's not going to have the same results as somebody who's really making lots of different changes as well.
Yeah, and explain what a prebiotic is, because that's also on the rise for popularity. And I've tried some and they killed my stomach. Like, I did the raw potato starch and I was keeled over in pain. And
Yeah,
then I was like, not doing that again.
I'm done with that. Yeah, I don't blame you. So a prebiotic, if you go back to that garden analogy again, is
Yeah.
kind of like the fertilizer in the garden. So it's going in there and feeding the garden and make what all the probiotics, the gardener, cleaning it all up. And the prebiotic is the fertilizer for the gardener. So when the problem with prebiotics out there, and this is why here we are, this gut health supplement company. We're like this research backed, gut health supplement company. We're pioneers in this space, and we didn't have a prebiotic for many years because most of the prebiotics on the market, we have trouble distinguishing between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. So when we take fertilizer and feed it to our weeds, what's it going to do? It's just going to make more weeds. And that's probably what you experienced is,
Mhm.
it was making your bad bacteria actually be overgrown, and that's exactly what you didn't want to do. So we work with these oligosaccharides ingredient or fibers that actually only target the beneficial bacteria in your gut. So it's going in and helping feed those beneficial bacteria and help them flourish and help create more diversity in the gut. And we have a study that the probiotic and prebiotic together have created like 100 to 150 fold increase in diversity in the microbiome. So
Wow.
it's pretty profound. But the probiotic alone will create diversity. And the prebiotic is great. If you're somebody that eats a ton of vegetables and a lot of prebiotic foods, you could absolutely, not have to take the prebiotic. Of course, most people aren't taking or eating enough vegetables on a regular basis, but the probiotic, you can't really get these probiotic strains. You can't get them from food unless you're eating, if you're living in Tanzania or a tribe in, nowhere's land where like the soil has been untouched and the soil is not depleted of its nutrients. But we really can't get the spore-based probiotic strains from a food source. The prebiotic you can, but again, you'd have to eat large amounts. And we all know how important prebiotics are for us just because they're helping make all the good stuff in the gut flourish.
Populate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because when you were talking about like that it make the soil or the spore biotic makes its way down into the gut and bypasses all of the you know the heat and the processing, and it's going to stay, and then it takes off that shell. I just had this like vision of like this little guy like unzipping his jacket and taking it off. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I can take my coat
I know.
off now,
I'm
and now I'm
here.
going
Yes.
out there to populate the gut.
I know exactly. It's like I'm here and ready to take charge. Exactly. They are
And
they are they're amazing organism. And we have to remember our ancestors used to get these spores every day from the soil. Our ancestors used to eat off the land. They would eat roots and tubers off the land, and they would get those roots and tumors were these roots and tubers were teeming with the soil, and the soil had all this beneficial bacteria and had the spores in it. So we naturally evolved to be consuming these on a regular basis. It's just the soil that we have now is just depleted of all those nutrients. We're not
right.
getting it from the soil.
Yeah, it is. And that's the bottom line is we can't get it anymore. And that they're
Yeah.
like we're mineral deficient, we're bacteria deficient, and this is a product of our environment and there's no escaping unless, like you said, like, if you're living off the land in the middle of nowhere and growing all your own food, great.
Yeah.
And maybe you could get these, but who's doing that? Not many of us,
Yeah.
so it
No,
does
I know.
take
I
some
wish we were.
supplementation.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I mean, I wish we were all eating off the land. I really do because
Me too.
we would have so much less chronic disease out there and just so much more health. I mean, it's just such an epidemic right now going on between the glyphosates and the
Mhm.
processed foods that are just wreaking havoc on our gut. And it's really all stemming from our gut.
Yeah, I interviewed mm, mm, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget her name. She was the creator of the GAPS diet.
Oh, I'm forgetting her name
Dr.
too.
Natalie? No, anyways, I'm gonna link to it, you guys, in the show notes.
Okay.
But it was fascinating. She's this like Russian nutritionist, doctor woman who created the GAPS protocol to help reverse autism in children. And she talks about how we're just like, we're passing our gut bacteria down to our kids, and our kids are
Yes.
being, this is why we're seeing this increase in issues like autism, ADD, ADHD, why it's so on the rise because of what we're talking about here today, the gut brain connection. And she's like, if we can catch a child before they hit 3 and we can reverse the bad bacteria and get rid of it and flourish the gut with good bacteria through hers is through food and other means, but that she said we can reverse the autism.
Yeah,
And
I
she says flat out, "We can
yeah,
revert," which I'm sure she's not
yeah.
allowed to say that,
I
but
know I her name is escaping me too because we've presented several times at many autism conferences. One of it, which is
oh,
Autism One, because we see. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite testimonials is a mom. I'm always sensitive as a mother of three. I'm very sensitive now. I'm about to be a grandmother in a couple of weeks, and I'm so like sensitive to what's going on with our kids nowadays. But we spoke at these, and one of our best testimonials was a mom whose child on the autism spectrum who just it was life changing for him. I don't suggest that because he was on our product he no longer has autism, but we know it started improving his bowel movements. It started had he had better more energy, he but calmer energy. He was calmer, and it just I mean I save her voicemails on my phone all the time because it's amazing what when you start to heal your gut, all the things that start to happen. You start to have better energy. Even weight management. Yeah, I always laugh because we were in the pharma industry, and it's like side effects include suicidal thoughts and all these horrible like bloody stools, all these awful side effects. And with our product, we're like side effects include better weight management, better sleep, more energy. And we see this all the time with people. They come to the product because they maybe have bloating or gas, or they have a skin issue, or they trying to just overall health. And they're like, now I see what you're talking about, because they're like, was I supposed to lose a little bit of weight? And I'm like, well, certainly not a weight loss supplement. But if you think about it, if you start to go to the bathroom more regularly, you're getting rid of toxins. So you're having more energy, you're sleeping better, and then you're, yeah, losing a few pounds too. And it's your gut microbiome that's dictating how you're metabolizing food, and whether or not you're one of those people that could look at a cupcake and gain 10 pounds, or one of those people that could eat a cupcake and not gain any weight. So it's really your gut microbiome that's making those decisions. So when you start to, you know, heal your gut, the magic starts to happen.
Natasha McBride.
That's what it is. Okay, good job.
Boom, popped into my head. I'm
Yes,
like, "Whew,
yes.
phew."
Oh, yes. Our team
My
has been in many conversations with her.
Oh, she's amazing, and she's just, like,
Amazing.
she's very Russian, hey? Like, she's just
Yes,
kinda
yes.
to the point, I would say, but I will link to it, but I'll also do a replay. Every Tuesday, we do a blast from the past quick hits where I just play 15 minutes of an episode of a past interview, and so I will play that one. That'll be my next quick hits that will come after this episode with you so that people can go and listen to it, because it is absolutely fascinating and just more interest, like super interesting stuff about the gut brain axis. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
will do that for everybody. Now for those that would like to try the product, your product, for a limited time, you can save 20% off a 90-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic or Just Calm at justthrivehealth.com with promo code hormone. And I'm going to link to that, you guys, in the show notes. But 20%, that's a great discount. So thank you for that, because I really want people to try this, especially you midlife women. We can use all the help we can get. And I've been talking a lot on my podcast about, picking and choosing what your top things need to be, because we can get so overwhelmed with products that we want to try. Everything sounds super exciting. And it's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. And
mhm.
we have members in our group that are like, my husband said, ever since I started listening to podcasts, I'm spending too much money. So I
Yeah.
just did a whole episode on like prioritizing what's most important. And I'm going to put this at the top of everybody's list for you, because I see I'm on the front lines of hormone replacement therapy and hormone dysregulation. I've worked with thousands of women, and I will tell you that gut health is number one, that we have to have good gut health in order to manage our hormones, whether that's HRT or your own production of hormones. So not only will it help your gut to thrive, but it's also sounds to be like it could be awesome for possibly mental health as well. So you never know, give it a try. 20% off, coupon code hormone. Tina, thank you so much for your expertise today. I'm so glad that I had you on to go through this, and I'm really excited to stay on your products and see what they're going to do for me.
Well, thank you, Karen. I really appreciate you having me here. And thanks to everyone that listened today.